Our guests, both of them, also in Washington, D.C. Sina Azodi, Director of the Middle East Studies Program at George Washington University, is also the author of Iran and the Bomb, the United States, Iran and the Nuclear Question. And Eyre, Distinguished Diplomatic Fellow at the Middle East Institute and a former senior diplomat on the U.S. negotiating team for the 2015 JCPOA Iran nuclear deal. A very warm welcome to both of you. Sina, if I can start with you, because given the IRGC's decision to slam the Strait of Hormuz closed again just hours after President Trump has been signalling, a degree of optimism, what do you see as the links between what's happening in the Strait right now and the apparent progress made on the diplomatic front?
I'm not sure if I can trust what President Trump claims to be true. President Trump likes to make a lot of claims that are not necessarily accurate at all times. In fact, when he said that the Iranians will give up their uranium, enriched uranium, and so on and so forth, Iranians 100% denied it. I think Iranian response to Iranian decision to reclose the Strait of Hormuz is the fact that the American side continues to do a double blockade of the Strait of Hormuz as an instrument of coercion. So Iranians who think that this is their biggest card in the negotiations or leverage, they've decided to reimpose the blockade. We are now seeing that there are some reports that the U.S. is preparing to board Iranian oil tankers. That would be another escalation. So I think, yesterday we were going for de-escalation, but today we are in the opposite direction, unfortunately.
An escalation ladder, it's been called. Alan, from what I understand, you are well known in diplomatic circles as the first ever Persian language spokesperson for the US State Department. You come at this from a unique position. Is it fair to say you represent the diplomatic track currently being tested by the military track in the last 48 hours?
Well, there is no diplomatic track. I mean, paradoxically, I'm going to be less diplomatic than my friend Sina. Yeah, diplomacy never really got started, and both sides are stuck in what you referred to correctly as an escalatory spiral, trying to coerce the other side into accepting maximalist positions, which they're not going to accept. So, and also, let's note, the Strait was never open yesterday. Social media postings are not policy. Yesterday, about 8 tankers went through. Most of them were associated with Iran's shadow fleet. Normally, about 130 tankers go through the Strait each day. So not much change yesterday other than President Trump's rhetoric, which, as Sina said, is often just not factually correct.
Well, Sina, talking about Trump's rhetoric, President Trump remarked that this morning that Iran got a little bit cute by reclosing the Strait of Hormuz that Alan said was never really open in the first place. I mean, in the Iranian diplomatic lexicon, is there any room for a deal when the American president characterizes their survival based on strategy as some sort of game?
Well, I think unlike the Trump V1, that you had a diplomatic cadre of Iranian professionals who spoke the diplomatic language, I think that this time around, Iranians have adapted to President Trump's approach to policy, and all you have to do is to look at all the animations or all the Lego animations that they put out there, or the Iranian embassy accounts that are trolling President Trump. It seems that they have become very effective at it. So I think Iranians have, as I said, they've learned how to talk to Donald Trump. Even in the past and prior to the negotiations, the tweets that came out or the posts that came out on Iran's foreign ministry accounts or Foreign Minister Araghchi, they were really tuned to reach President Trump's ears. They were not effective. It failed. But I think now Iranians, as I said, they've adapted this new strategy. And if I may add one more thing, look, it is very unfortunate that we're seeing that the President of the United States has adopted this language. One day he calls the Strait of Hormuz the Strait of America. The other day, because he's happy, he calls it Strait of Iran. I think this shouldn't be something that the President of the United States do.
Yeah, I think Scott Bessent of the Treasury Department called it the Strait of Hormuz the other day, which was an unfortunate gaffe. Alan, back to you. The JCPOA deal took, as you mentioned last time I spoke to you, 5 years to hammer out in total. How different are the conditions for peace, or progress at least, now compared to back then? The big variable, of course, is Donald Trump as a president.
Well, much, much harder. And the big variable is not just Donald Trump's personality, but the fact that Iran is on the far side of two wars, actually still in the second war. Last year's 12-day war, and also this Operation Epic Fury. And as a result of Israeli and U.S. decapitation strikes, the leadership in Iran right now is far less user-friendly for the U.S. than one was back then. Back in the Obama administration, both sides wanted to deal, and there was a sufficient level of mutual trust. Right now, the U.S. doesn't want to negotiate. It wants Iran to surrender, and Iran doesn't trust the U.S., doesn't trust Israel, looking for security guarantees it can't get verbally, and also needs a source of revenue to make up for the roughly $300 billion to $1 trillion worth of damage that the U.S. and Israel have inflicted on it. Much tougher.
Much tougher indeed. Sina, I want to delve down into things that you've written about, because you have suggested that the US may eventually have to learn to live with Iran as a nuclear threshold state. I mean, given the current erosion of the JCPOA, what specific red lines or transparency measures do you believe are still achievable that would still satisfy Western security concerns without requiring the full dismantling of Iran's nuclear program, which you describe as non-viable?
Yes, I'll call it non-viable and quite impossible because over the past 2 decades, Iran has institutionalized its knowledge of nuclear enrichment, capacity to produce nuclear weapons. They've done studies on everything that they had to study for the production of nuclear weapons. They mastered the enrichment, which is theoretically the key technology that you needed. So I think the best and only viable option for the United States, and rather anyone interested in non-proliferation, is to ensure that it does, first of all, Iran does not have the incentive to go for a bomb. And second, Iran is subject to intrusive inspections under the IAEA. But I don't think that any government in Iran, any regime in Iran, will at this point agree to dismantle the enrichment, dismantle the nuclear program for 2 reasons. One, it is politically very sensitive in Iran. And secondly, it's a matter of a national dignity for them. That's why I don't think they will give up on the principle of enrichment. Now, if there's a moratorium for how many years that Iran and the U.S. can agree, that's fine. But the principle of enrichment and dismantling the nuclear program for Iranians is their brightest red line.
Just following on that, those comments from Sina, Alan, I mean, the president, the US president, has vowed to get all the nuclear dust from damaged Iranian sites. I mean, as a negotiator, how do you bridge the gap between that kind of maximalist rhetoric and the technical, granular reality, as Sina suggested, of IAEA inspections?
Yeah, I mean, the brutal truth is that's not going to happen in any sort of world we live in now. But you don't need for it to happen in order to put the Iranian nuclear program in a box that precludes them from having a nuclear weapon. We did that under the Obama administration. It wasn't a perfect deal, but it was viable and it served the need. It's going to be far harder to do that now, given the current circumstances. But just to add on what Sina was saying, there's a more exigent problem. President Trump can kick the nuclear can down the road. Iran wasn't seeking a nuclear weapon since 2003. Of course, they might now because they've been attacked twice in the last year. But every day the strait remains closed. As I've said previously, the economic consequences for the global economy are compounding. And so, yes, we need to solve the nuclear issue. But more important than that, in the short term, is getting the strait open.
Well, many thanks to both of you. It's been a pleasure hearing your analysis on all of this. Sina Azodi, Director of the Middle East Studies Programme at George Washington University, and Alan Eyre, Distinguished Diplomatic Fellow at the Middle East Institute and former senior diplomat on the US negotiating team that, of course, hammered out the JCPOA deal back in 2015.